Hey, so we're here with Vin Matano.
Yes, sir.
Vin is the founder of Creatorbuzz. We want to talk about the stuff they're doing over there at Creatorbuzz, how Vin got into this world of B2B influencer marketing, and what's really different about that world versus what we usually see, which is the B2C influencer marketing world, and really how we as businesses should be treating the people who we're relying on to do that type of marketing. So, Vin, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to kick it off.
I know you and Vince, so we've got Vin and Vince. So let's try to make sure that we're very clear
hmm
with who we're talking about here today. You all met a little while ago, and we thought it'd be a great conversation we could pick up from here. Maybe we could get started with like Vin. There's people who aren't going to know what Creator Buzz is. People are going to be unfamiliar with what even influencer marketing. For those unfamiliar with what you're doing, how would you describe like your company and its mission in your own words?
I would say if you're familiar with influencer marketing, we're an influencer marketing agency for B2B tech companies, essentially. Now, if you're unfamiliar with influencer marketing, because in the B2B space, I understand that it may not be that common of a practice, but it's basically using folks that have influence in a particular niche or industry, introducing them to your products or services, and letting them create some sort of either sponsored content or some sort of asset regarding your products or services and introducing it to their audiences.
Yeah. So maybe can you give us an example of someone who's doing influencer marketing that like everyone will know and maybe can relate to?
Well, in my world, I would say Clay is a pretty popular company. They're gaining a lot of popularity right now, and one of the ways they have grown was organically through content, but now they're actually investing a lot of time and energy into influencer marketing. And so Clay, short story long, is basically this high level tool for RevOps to create sequences and enrichment tools and workflows. They work with influencers within that niche, within RevOps, within sales, marketing, go to market, and they show how to use their tool and then post it to their own audiences, how they're actually using Clay in their day to day.
Definitely can comment on the momentum behind B2B influencer marketing. So I feel you're at the right place at the right time. What would you say? What was the idea behind creating your own agency? What was the spark that made you want to create and jump into the entrepreneurship kind of bandwagon?
Yeah, I spent the last 6 years in B2B SaaS. I was in a sales role selling enterprise marketing software. So I was talking to marketers all day, every day for the past
Mm.
6 years. At the same time, I was also creating content for my personal brand, and I was creating content about my day job, about being in sales. So two things were happening simultaneously. One, I was talking to marketers all day, every day, and common trends we were seeing year after year was that pipeline is decreasing. They're spending more and more on digital advertising, but seeing less results. People want to shop anonymously. They don't really want to speak to a salesperson. Um, sales performances were kind of going down. We were hearing that across go-to-market orgs. And there's this big shift in the buying market in B2B today where folks don't necessarily want to talk to a salesperson like myself. In fact, they want to avoid that. 80% of the buyer's journey is done anonymously. And that anonymous part of the buyer's journey is them tapping into communities, asking friends, seeing thought leaders talk about certain products or recommend certain products, going on forums. So I noticed that trend was kind of happening. And then all while I started building my personal brand and started to work with some sales technology tools because I talked a lot about sales. And I saw there was a big opportunity there that really wasn't being supported, specifically in B2B. There's dozens, maybe probably, I don't know the exact number, maybe thousands of influencer marketing agencies. The majority of them, based on my research, were really hyper focused
Mm.
on the consumer.
Right.
And there wasn't many agencies at all that I found that were 100% focused on that B2B use case.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk a lot about like a new trend happening, but in reality, it always been like this. Like everybody, um, whether you're on the B2C or the B2B side, we do our own research. We ask friends, we and communities since the internet was created. So it's a very interesting trend that the go-to-market strategy is now aligning with something that it's almost obvious. So I wonder, like when you chat with companies, like what do you see in terms of is this something new that they're discovering or are they now connecting the dots sort of?
I would say there's two types of companies as of right now, and again, and of course, generalizing that I'm
Yeah.
mostly working with. One would be we've never done influencer marketing, but it's on our radar and we want to
Mm,
explore it.
mm,
The other would be we've tested it out. We've worked with
mm.
one, two, three, handful of influencers, and we want to scale it. Those are generally the two conversations that I'm having right now. And
Right.
so they're pretty much in their infancy stages of building out a more proper program. And we
Mm-hmm.
have clients that started with literally, our biggest client started with, I think, 5 influencers, and right now we're scaling up to 30.
Nice.
There's a lot of momentum within the space.
There's the B2B side, and I know that really like differentiates what you're doing. But I'm assuming that there's other things that you all are doing at Creatorbuzz that differentiates you. Maybe it's how you work with influencers. Maybe it's the type of content or the type of partnerships you're building. Like, what else when you've been building this business has come out as sort of like the unique secret sauce, and maybe maybe a secret sauce. So maybe you don't want to speak to it
Just
that
keep
much.
just
But
keep
yeah,
one or two ingredients.
I keep
Right.
1 or 2 ingredients back.
That's what my grandma would do. She'd give you an unfinished recipe, and I don't know why it tastes different.
Yeah.
Um, no, I'm just kidding. But I think, yes, aside from being hyper focused on B2B, I think that is honestly a very big competitive advantage for us. I think the
Mm,
other one too is having my background as a creator.
right.
Prior to launching the agency, I've worked with over 50 different technology companies, from really big ones like Adobe, Microsoft, and LinkedIn for my personal brand, and then really, really small startups that, in the beginning stages, I was kind of just taking anything, and you've probably never heard of these companies.
Mm,
And so, I'm getting that perspective on what's working, what's not working from the creator standpoint. And although we represent brands, of course, when we sign a new client, we now have to recruit and find influencers for them. And I now have that understanding and can relate to those influencers to get the best product out of them, or the best content out of them, I should say. And so that's been something that is, I think I overlooked starting into the business. Having that expertise and that experience of working with all these different brands really comes into play when we're actually launching a influencer campaign.
mm. Want to double click on creators and based on your experience as a creator as well. What would you say now are one of the like top considerations for creators as we walk into 2025? What are those companies should keep in mind when they want to work with a creator, be it in B2C or B2B?
For both industries, one of the biggest trends that's happening for this year is the lack of importance around follower count.
Mm,
You can quite literally say like follower count is dead,
mm,
because all of the main platforms, no matter if it's B2C or B2B, on the B2C side, you have TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. On the B2B side, it's mostly LinkedIn, maybe X or Twitter. All of those platforms now operate algorithmically.
yep.
So it doesn't actually matter what that exact follower count is. But there's so many creators, especially on LinkedIn, that have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they make a post and get under
Very
2,000,
little engagement.
very
Yeah.
little engagement, under 2,000 views. The platforms are actually prioritizing high quality content. And
Mm,
we actually got invited to LinkedIn's office a month or so ago to meet with their video team. They now have a new video feed within LinkedIn. And one of the things that they were prioritizing was around knowledge based content. If you're sharing something of value compared to TikTok, it could be a lifestyle video or something like that. The other thing that they're prioritizing is lived experiences, right? So, you're Vince, you're successful in your career, and you sharing actual value from what you learned over those years. That's what they're prioritizing in the algorithm. And what we look for in terms of when we're finding creators is not follower count by any means, but we're looking for engagement. Is there conversations happening
yep.
in their comments? Do they have community? Do they have other channels like newsletters? Those are pretty good indicator that they have some sort of influence, and less prioritization on the follower count.
So the community management aspect is very key for any creators or any brand that wants to tap into influencer marketing, because if there's no engagement, content's never going to be seen, even though there's like thousands and thousands of followers.
Correct.
So I guess like one of the things that I'm thinking about, like a B2B company or a brand, and they're out there and they're saying like, I want to jump into influencer marketing. Like, they're going to be looking for influencers and almost making sure that they're getting like a full stack influencer, because that person with hundreds of thousands of followers but very low engagement versus this person with like an active engaged community. One of the top things for them to look at is make sure that it's not just like a big number, sort of low payoff
Mm,
investment.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Yeah, I think a brand is more willing to park even more dollars into a creator if they do see they have that engaged community behind them. So it may just start off by us looking for a creator for one sponsored post, but if we find in that search that that same creator has a newsletter that has a very high open rate and
Mm.
tons of subscribers, they also have, I don't know, maybe they're active on X or Twitter. Maybe they have a YouTube channel where they do tutorials or stuff like that. We're actually doing a campaign for a company that is looking to partner with designers that are influencers. And a lot of them have really unique YouTube channels. A brand is more willing to say, hey, their entire audience is following them. Like, we rather adjust our budget to actually spend a little bit more with this particular creator because they're really dialed into the designer community. And so that's my recommendation for the creators as well, is to not just be reliant on just one platform just because you have engagement there, but to continue to open up other avenues.
There's something very interesting too with B2B. Oftentimes it's very niche. In B2C, I mean, everybody wears shoes. So you could be sold any shoes. But in B2B, sometimes the use cases are very unique. The industry that the brands are playing in is very unique. How have you find success in finding those creators, putting them in touch with the brand, making sure that the actual audience that they have, not only that they have engagement, but it's actual meaningful engagement based on what the brand is after. So, what are you seeing there?
That is the truth and a challenge at the same time within B2B. As of right now, I think as time goes on, there'll be more and more B2B creators, particularly in certain
Yep.
niches. I will give you an example. We work with this tool that sells to RevOps. RevOps is becoming a very, very
Right.
popular go-to-market position in organizations now, but there's not that many creators
Mhm.
in the space just yet. So like the top creator in that RevOps community, she only has 10, 15,000 followers.
Yep.
But in that community, she is the thought leader.
Right.
Mm.
And so that's a conversation that we had to have with the brand by saying, hey, you actually might not get the reach that you may be expecting with a particular niche like RevOps. Now, if you're selling to salespeople, your reach is going to be much higher because that audience is bigger. There's a lot more sales creators. But in a role like RevOps, really what we're focused on is just like penetrating that community. So if there are only 4 go-to thought leaders and they have a combined like 40,000 followers, which is not that much across 4 creators, well, that's guaranteeing that we've penetrated that community. And
Right.
so what we've done outside of that is worked with more, I would say, general creators that just talk about go to market more
Hmm.
in general.
Mm.
That gives them the eyeballs and the impressions. I wouldn't say that's more so like the bottom funnel content. It's more that top of funnel content.
Right.
But then we're working with those 4 really niche folks that like the other RevOps folks and know exactly what they're talking about
Mhm.
and actually going to drive some performance.
It's like a
I
voice and
mean,
a person that they trust.
Mm-hmm.
if we speak in terms of recommendation, like it's quality recommendation versus volume recommendation, which is in B2B, when you have to make, oftentimes when you make purchase in B2B, like you spend a lot of money. It takes time to integrate the tool and the platforms. You're kind of making a bet on something that's going to improve your go to market efficiency throughout 1 year. So I would say in the B2B space, getting that like laser recommendation versus like a lot of frequency from different platform is much, much better anyway. So maybe it's a little bit of a mind shift between B2C where you want to maximize impressions and reach. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
be divided by a certain conversion rate versus B2B. It's like if that person is endorsing that product and I'm trusting that person, I mean, that's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, I came from the world of, if you're familiar with the concept of like, account-based marketing, like that's what I sold at for the past
Yep.
6 years was ABM software. So we were constantly teaching our clients like how to be ultra targeted, and we really weren't focusing on spreading. That was our talk track, was like not to spread a wide net, was like let's
Mm,
narrow in on your certain set of target accounts and let's focus on penetrating those specific accounts. And the
mm,
same goes with influencer marketing in the B2B space. It's like, yes, the impressions are great, especially if you have an awareness challenge. But
mm.
at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're just everyone in this particular community that you sell to knows who you are. That's our main goal.
When you're working with influencers, you're partnering, right? Like you're building, you as an agency are helping an influencer partner with a brand, and the influencer should see success. The brand wants to see success. Influencers might be used to dealing with B2C brands. When they're dealing with a B2B brand, like how do they find that shift if they've done that before? Now they have to not only do that, but do that in a way that benefits the brand as well. Like, what are the challenges they might be finding there?
Yeah, you know what's funny actually? I actually think because some creators that have overlap with B2C audiences
Mhm.
and B2B audiences, myself included,
Yeah.
take me, I'm active on TikTok and Instagram and have a little bit of a B2C audience there. I almost find that the creators that have experience working with brands, even in a B2C capacity, are actually a lot more understanding of how to work with brands in a sponsored capacity,
Mm,
even if it's B2B. There's a lot of, I would say, just like formalities that are just known with creators that have worked with brands before. Whereas in B2B, it is very new, like we said. And a lot of these B2B creators are actually just working with brands for the very first time. Like even today,
Mhm.
I was
yeah.
exchanging emails with a creator who has 50,000 followers and she's never done one brand deal.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of education there, which is fine, but that's just the truth of the matter.
Mm.
And some creators that are new to it are not familiar with approval, content approval. So
Mm.
the creator sending the content to the agency, us, we approve the content before they post. That's a new concept to them. So there's just a lot of education right now that we're having to do, which we're happy to do because we are one of the first movers in the space. That is probably going to influence the future of B2B influencer marketing and what's common and what's not common and stuff like that.
On the other side of things, you have brands, right? And they want to build relationships with influencers. And one of the things that I personally have really appreciated is if I see someone who's posting and they post maybe that feeling of a recommendation, the first time might feel like it's a new thing in a feed, but when I see it the second or third time, there's a trust being built there. How does a brand keep that influencer like happy and ready and willing and wanting to jump in and do more work with them? Like, what are some of the things that they need to do? Because, that's the audience we're speaking to. We want to maybe even open some eyes to that B2B influencer marketing is possible, but let's remove a friction. How do they keep the process as frictionless as possible?
I will say it's a really good question. In B2B, just because the sales cycles are, much longer, 3 to
Extremely
6 months,
long. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just put your credit card in and purchase Trolley for, I don't know, 6 figures or however much Trolley costs. And so, from the brand's perspective, it's beneficial to sign creators to a multi-month agreement. And from the creator's perspective, well, now they're getting some stable income because as a
Right.
creator, it's
Hmm.
very volatile. And so we recommend at minimum like 3 month campaigns. One, so the brand can see results at that third month mark.
Mm.
And the creator can feel some sense of like, okay, the brand is kind of entering into a partnership versus a one-off agreement. That's the first part, making the creator feel that you guys are invested into them. Now, what you had asked is like, we want to make sure the content kind of feels fresh. And just because you sign someone to a 3 month agreement, like what exactly are they going to talk about for those 3 months? One of the most important parts is when we work with the brand is creating a content brief. And if you don't know what a content brief is, it's a very standard practice in influencer marketing. It's basically just a one-sheeter that allows the creators to understand the brand's value, but you're not telling the creator what to say essentially. You're
Okay.
basically helping them form their content in their own words while still hitting the major talking points or brand value that you want them to hit. And so by getting a accurate content brief, that allows the creator to create on their own terms, but also make sure that they fully understand the value and the different use cases that a particular brand offers.
Okay. So this content brief, like it's set of guardrails, it has messaging, it has sort of talking points, but not anything that says you must say this. Maybe there's a little bit of like make sure you clarify these things or what to stay away from, but it really is a set of guardrails that influencer can work within.
Exactly that. And I did not come up with this phrase, and it's going to bug me because I can't think of the creator who coined this phrase, but he's basically explaining that there's mirror content and then there's window content. And for the majority of working with influencers, it's usually window content, meaning you're looking through their window, through their lens, how they see your product, and they're going to communicate that to their audience, and they know how best to talk to
Mm,
their audience. Then you have mirror content, which happens less frequent, but this is when you need the creator to basically, uh, you know, act as a mirror to your brand. And this is usually used when brands will do rebrands, they offer a new product, some kind of news that you just need extra distribution to get the word out. And that's typically when the creator will have less creative freedom over that, but those happen a lot less frequent.
Is there anything else that maybe when we're thinking about, we're going to distribute this and try to get it into the hands of as many B2B companies as possible, anything else that they might need to think about when they're thinking about influencer marketing and bringing that in, what they should just have top of mind?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things that is a bit overlooked is what the CTA will be when working with creators. And now that really matters because in B2B, what's unique is you might have PLG companies,
Yep.
product-led growth. For the listeners that may not know what that is, it's basically someone can just sign up for free for a particular technology. Like think of Zoom, for example. We all can sign up for Zoom for free, and then Zoom reps will try to, sell us internally. Or you have maybe enterprise models or sales-led motions where I think Trolley is probably enterprise, I believe. You can't sign up for free.
And we have multiple use cases, so it really depends on for which use cases you're coming in, where PLG is going to be relevant, or in most of the cases, I would say, because we operate in a very um, strict industry and paradigm where, like, we're moving money. Like you said, you
Yeah.
can't put your credit card and buy something that's going to move your money from point A to point B. Yeah. So
Exactly.
you'll need to speak with someone at some point. So the
Right.
sales person's going to be in that process. The way we treat PLG is more as a discovery. So we offer like the product as a like play around, look at what, like, how the product feels, but on day one, you can't send, 100 grand to a specific
Right.
country.
Yeah.
Right. So some companies maybe have a mixture like Trolley,
Yeah.
but for generalizing, you have your PLG companies, you can sign up for free. And then you have your enterprise models where you need to talk to a salesperson in order to move forward. Now, the challenge there is when you're working with an influencer, most marketers that I talk to think the CTA should be like, try the tool for free
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm.
come see a demo of our tool.
Right.
Probably not the highest performing CTA, especially
Right.
if you're introducing a new product to a new audience. They're most likely not going to fill out a demo form. And so, what we're recommending to a lot of brands is identify some assets that you guys may already have that your influencers can share. That way, it's a value add to their audience. And then, two, it's just extra distribution. Like, for
Mhm.
example, a lot of B2B companies put together these big annual reports.
Right.
Hootsuite just did one where it's like the social media benchmark report. They put it out annually.
Right.
And instead of running ads and hoping people download it, they worked with creators to post their favorite stat or
And
whatever
share the findings and
Yeah.
and share the findings. And that way they are getting lead flow. People are downloading it. Their CEO said that that campaign generated $1 million in pipeline in a week.
nice.
So that's a unique way to use influencers versus just saying, hey, come try our product.
And like the CTA and the conversion is one thing, but when you invest time and energy in building those annual reports that essentially is your point of view on something, you want that point of view to be distributed in your market. Otherwise, why are you doing this? So, if anything, like the main CTA and the main goal of those campaigns, when it's based on an annual report like this, is just to distribute that content and
Yeah.
then distribute the point of view. Like, otherwise, don't invest time and money on building this report if you just want people to give you an email.
Spot on. That's exactly right.
If we look forward, what do you think will be like the trends we're going to see this year and even moving forward? Like, what's going to be the disruptions that we're going to see that might impact the influencer marketing space and the creator space in general?
I will say, I mean, even based on the conversations we're having, a lot of the B2B marketing orgs are shifting a lot of their paid budget into influencer marketing, whether
Mhm.
it's as a trial, hey, we never done it, we want to test it out, or we've tried it already and we want to now scale it. Hockey Stack is a B2B attribution tool, and they just announced that they're spending $600K in influencer marketing going forward
Nice.
next year. So there's public trends that are happening, and that's one general view of where B2B marketing orgs are going. I would say the other piece of it is the actual content that's being produced now. I think with the rise of LinkedIn, it allows more opportunity for creators to be more creative. Like in the past, if you worked with a thought leader or a creator, maybe they spoke at your conference, or maybe you got them featured in your ebook or webinar.
Mm.
And that's still the use case today,
Yeah.
but LinkedIn has created a lot more opportunities for creators to create unique assets and unique content that wasn't even available to do, 5 years ago.
Before it was about bringing that creator on stage at your conference, and that's still good. I think that's just how it works nowadays. You need to have multiple touches in multiple channels. So this is where like creators are becoming very important because you need to multiply the channels. And if you just rely on your internal team, that's always going to be challenging. I think the future is super bright for influencer marketing, especially in the B2B space. Super new. People are looking at this now, making commitment. Like brands were making commitment towards digital advertising 10 years ago. So it's very, very exciting. And I guess you're exciting as well, being in the at the forefront in the center of this new era.
It's exciting. I actually feel like some sort of shift happening. And like I said, I've been
Mm,
creating content for the past 4 years. I remember doing outreach to brands like Asana. I think it was Asana. I started doing
mm,
outreach to them in 2019. I was like, I have this small audience on LinkedIn. Like, my followers are all business professionals. Like,
mm,
this would be such a cool brand deal. And I was like doing outreach, and like I've
mm.
heard crickets. And now, whatever, 4, 5, 6 years later, there is actual conversations happening in boardrooms that are like, okay, we're gonna invest into influencer marketing. So it's quite crazy.
100%.
Um,
And in terms of trends and future outlook, how do you see AI playing into that space?
I think a lot of creators are using AI today, specifically with like script writing. I even leverage AI to an extent to help with some script writing.
Hmm.
I know a lot of creators today are experimenting with AI with video editing, clips,
Right.
and podcasting. That's just like scratching the surface. Well, regardless of what actually happens, I think every platform needs to have some disclosures if AI is being used, and I believe Instagram has that already. If
Mm,
there's any AI being used, like, it
yeah.
has to be disclosed. And even platforms like TikTok, love it or hate it, even if you use a filter, it'll
Mm,
disclose that you've used
yep.
the filter. So, if you are going to use AI, yeah, it definitely has to
Yeah.
be
mm,
disclosed.
Yeah. But if you play ball, and I mean every brand now could create content using avatars and all that, and then um I feel it's a risk for creator, but it's also a world of possibilities at the same time. So it's gonna I feel 2025 is gonna be wild. It feels like
ChatGPT.
it was like 15 years ago. Like in 2 years, it's gonna be so different.
I actually think one of the bigger trends that'll happen next year is around in-person events making a comeback, but in a different capacity.
Yep.
Mm,
I've seen a big trend with more intimate, and I've been lucky enough to attend a handful of branded events from the consumer space and seeing how they're putting on events and it's themed and they're very intimate. There's maybe,
Mm,
under 50 people there. Some of them are smaller dinners and things like that. But the way they can curate an event
mm,
with creators there and the creators are capturing the content, the event itself doesn't even need to be this big thing, but the reach that and the
yep.
distribution for the creators in the room that are invited to these events make it seem so much bigger. And so I've noticed brands scaling back. Even when I was at Demand Base, we were working with companies that were investing into conferences and stuff like that. And I noticed brands were spending less on their conferences. They're being more strategic on which ones they're going to.
Right.
And now I think a trend will be, and I know this because I've been the creator to some of these events, but bringing a creator to some of the events that they're investing into to extend the shelf life of those events.
Yep.
Having a creator there, now you have different pieces of content that you can run
Yep.
for weeks on end, maybe even months on end, depending on how much content is created after that conference.
Mm, really like that.
Vin, we've been chatting for a good half hour now, and I think it's a great conversation. I don't want to cut us off, but unfortunately, we have to end it at some point. I wanted to ask one sort of big question at the end, and kind of hearing a little bit. I think we're pointing at it. Sometimes when we think about like influencer marketing in the B2C space, there's a bit of saturation. What's your take on the saturation for B2B companies who are looking at influencer marketing for the first time? Like, are we at risk of being a year away from saturation, or are we white space for the foreseeable future? And is there room for even more creators in this space to help drive it forward?
That is a really, really good question. I think about that a lot because I think there's one brand that comes to mind that I obviously won't name that I think has fallen victim to that. And the reason why is because I think they went too big too quick. I don't want to sound like I'm putting a brand
No.
down by any means, but there's basically a brand that was investing into influencer marketing in the B2B space very, very early on, like before any brand was even thinking about it. And at the time, it was pretty revolutionary because I think they were the first mover in, at least in the space I was in. I think what had happened is they went too big too fast, and they also didn't really care what the influencers were posting. And
Hmm.
you could tell like there was no rhyme or reason behind any of the content that was being shared, and it was almost a regurgitation of the same posts between all the creators,
Mm.
and it became almost a thing that people were looking out for now. And so that is a quick way to kind of just get saturation. Now you could argue and say, okay, great, everyone still knows the brand though. Sure. I mean, I
Mm.
guess they achieved what the goal they had.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot more thoughtful ways we can be using creators and having a little bit more control over the content that they are putting out and not telling them what to post, but making sure that their messaging is staying fresh. And
Yeah.
that's where we come in. So in terms of saturation, the question you asked, I think we're a far ways from that in terms of like mass saturation. Whereas like you open TikTok and every video is some sort of sponsored post or TikTok
Right.
shop. I don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, all the conversation I'm having, most of these brands aren't really even doing influencer marketing. I think
Mm.
we're ways and ways and ways away from that. But it is something to be conscious of because it could be easy to use the influencers in the wrong way, is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe going back to one of the first things we talked about, hearing the influencer in their own voice, leaving them with a creative brief as opposed to a script, seems to give that natural feel that builds trust and lets people accomplish exactly what they're looking for.
Exactly. You want to have the creator to be excited to make the content every month versus it gets to that time of the month and they're like, ah, crap, I still have to write out this post today. And then they
Mm.
just throw it up, in 15 minutes before two calls. Like that's not what you want.
Yeah.
100%. All right, Vin, thank you so much. It was great chat. Love to talk about influencer marketing, especially B2B, being in B2B space. So thank you so much for your thoughts. What can we wish Creator Buzz for 2025 now?
We just wish a lot of momentum. If you guys if anyone listening here is just interested, just in the topic of influencer marketing in the B2B space specifically and how it can work for your org, you can reach out to me very easily. I'm very accessible. I'm happy to have those conversations, whether you guys are really ready to pull the trigger or you're just kind of testing the waters or even just want to have a conversation about it. We're happy to have those.
Where's the best place for people to find you?
Oh man, I'm everywhere. I would say the best place for folks to find me is you can go to creatorbuzz.com. Literally the only button on the entire website is booking a call directly with me. One clear CTA, minimal buttons. If you're also interested in some like content around influencer marketing and building this agency in public, I create a lot of content around that on my LinkedIn. So that's the other good place to follow me.